Good morning, everybody. Um, my names are Agnes Mando Banda. I'm from Zambia, Zambia. My area of interest is early childhood education, and in this particular presentation, I'm looking at the capacity of maids training centers to train housemaids for infant care in Lusaka, Zambia. Introduction. Many women in Zambia now are involved in income generating activities, and according to the Central Statistics Office, almost 38% of the women are now working outside the home to complement the income for the household. These women work on the streets, they sell different merchandise, they cook in the markets, they are chief executives, they are teachers and nurses, and they are working outside the home. According to the labor laws of Zambia, maternity leave is only for 3 months, meaning that the mother, a working mother, has to leave the infant after 3 months of being with the child or after giving birth. Because of this situation, housemaids are the ones that most mothers employ to take care of these infants. They are trained by maid training centers, and the capacity of these maid training centers has not been looked into or studied before. We all know that the quality of care is dependent also on the knowledge of the caregiver, and the quality of training therefore affects the care of the infant. As I said, nothing is known about the capacity of these maid training centers to train housemaids for infant care. The importance of this study. In the absence of creches and nursery schools in places of work, housemaids are a cheaper option for many Zambian families. Besides, even if the creches and the nursery schools were available, very few working mothers or parents would afford the fees to take their children there. We all know the importance of infancy. It is a delicate stage in human development, and the need for caregivers who are knowledgeable in child development and have skills on how to stimulate learning and mediate learning in infants cannot be overemphasized. This research aims at creating an awareness among parents and the government of the vulnerability of infants taken care of housemaids. The Zambian government, therefore, should take an interest in the mushrooming of maid training centers. They are coming up on every street, they are there. So it is important that the government should take an interest and see whether these centers are registered. If not registered, they should be registered, train the trainers, quality assure the curriculum, or develop a standardized curriculum and issue appropriate certificates. Like I said, no studies of this nature have been done in Zambia. The research questions. This study sought to answer the following research questions. What is the capacity of maid training centers to train housemaids for infant care? How relevant is the curriculum used by maid training centers for infant care? How well do housemaids perform their duties after training? Now, before I go into the methodology, this study is based on the 4 theories of 1, Lev Mionovich, Vygotsky, social culture theory, and Lev says that learning is actually embedded in the social setup of any given community or nation. And the tools for learning are also culturally, they're embedded in the culture of the people. Yuri Bronfenbrenner is another theory that I looked at, and his bioecological theory, where he puts the child in the center, and the environment in secular circles. In other words, there's an immediate environment, which is the family, and in this case, in that immediate environment, that's where the housemaid will be placed, because she will be spending a lot of time with the infant in the absence of the mother. Then I also looked at Jean Piaget's constructivistic theory, and the emphasis is that the infants are able to construct their own knowledge and be able to interact with the environment and use the environment to learn and construct, and in that process they construct more and more knowledge. I also looked at Klein's learning experience, mediated learning experience theory, whereby it is important that for learning to take place, it should be mediated. Attention should be focused on a particular item so that the child or the learner can pay attention to that one. For example, if a housemaid is bathing the baby, she should be able to say, oh, this is water. The water is warm. So you're going to have a wonderful bath. So the maid, by so doing or by so saying, is mediating learning, is drawing the attention of a child to the properties of water and the uses of water. So those are the 4 basic theories upon which this study is based. The methodology. This study is a collective case study, meaning that it is qualitative by nature. That aside, I also included some quantitative methods in data collection. Under the qualitative methods, I used focus group discussion. The discussion involved the 10 housemaids. The discussions were recorded and replayed for member check so that the maids can check that what has been recorded represents their views and their thoughts. Then afterwards, this information was replayed and transcribed so that all the major themes and feelings and thoughts and opinion of the housemates can be recorded. Personal interviews also were conducted with the trainers and the housemates and the owners of the training centers. Document analysis was also done. And document analysis, we're trying to look at the implementation process of the curriculum. And the documents of interest were lesson plans, schemes of work, the curriculum itself, the content, the syllabus, all those things, enrollment records. Those were of interest, and we looked at them thoroughly and analyzed them. The quantitative methods, we used questionnaires for mothers, questionnaires for the questionnaires for mothers. There was a questionnaire for maids themselves, a questionnaire for trainers, and questionnaires for managers of the maids training centers. So those were the main methods that were used to collect the data. The findings. After analyzing the data, and I must hasten to say that for quantitative data, we use the SPSS 25.0. And for the other qualitative methods, we did a critical analysis and drawing up of themes that were coming out. The interviews, we looked at them and grouped the responses according to what was given. The findings were as follows. The maids training centers have no capacity to train housemaids for infant care. The trainers themselves who train, most of them are former housemaids. So they are not trained in infant care or in child development. There are no instructional materials. We visited the 20 centers, went around the premises, and there are no instructional materials, no textbooks, no libraries, not even materials to use for demonstrating certain skills. The duration of the training was also found to be very inadequate, averaging about 2 weeks. Even if it's hands-on training, that is very, very limited. And when we start talking about training of caregivers for infants, 2 weeks was found to be grossly insufficient. The curriculum was also another interesting aspect. We found that the curriculum they were using in the 20 maids training centers was not standardized and is not quality assured by any organization, association, or government body. What we found out is that the curriculum is designed by individual maids training centers, and the owners of these maids training centers are the ones that come up with the curriculum. Don't forget that these are also, in most cases, 5%, they are former housemates. The trainers focus on housekeeping. I think that is their focus, their point of focus. They teach these trainee housemaids how to keep the house clean. There was very little on how to prepare food, and there was absolutely nothing on infant care. Record keeping also was found to be very, very poor. So even if the mothers are comfortable by employing trained or the so-called trained housemaid, there is, in the programs that we saw, there is no focus on infant care in these training centers. Recommendations for the government, I'm proposing that the government should provide policy guidelines for regulation and operations of maids training centers in Zambia. Like I said, they are mushrooming and they are not registered, and there are no policy guidelines from the government or any association to help them run the centers. I'm also proposing the provision of a standardized maids training curriculum. This could be done with the help of the government, so that all the maids training centers can follow a similar curriculum. It is also important that the government and everybody else recognizes that infant care is a specialized field. And by so being, it is important that people or caregivers especially are trained in infant care and child development to make sure that the child benefits from their care. Recommendations for the maids training centers: they should meet the minimum standards for training housemaids in infant care. They should have appropriate materials demonstrating certain skills and other resources that are necessary for training. The trainers themselves should be trained in infant care or child development. The maids training centers need to invest in library where students could study and improve their theoretical knowledge. As it is, all the 20 maids training centers do not have libraries. They don't even have textbooks. So there is no theoretical knowledge that the housemaids acquire from the maids training centers. The maid training centers also should invest in instructional materials, like I said, such as computers, printers, photocopiers, scanners, textbooks, overhead projectors, materials for practical work, and communication gadgets, among others. The duration of training also should be increased from 2 weeks, maybe a minimum of 1 year. Topics for further research in this field in Zambia. We could be the effect of housemaids on social and language development, the attachment process of infants to housemates who live in and those that live out of their employer's house, the effect of living maids on personality development of infants, the infant care skills and knowledge and its effect on the development of infants, the effect of high rate of turnover of housemaids taking care of infants on the holistic development of infants. Can housemaids replace the mothers? I think that could be a very, very interesting study. Thank you for listening. This is where my presentation